My name is Rebecca, and at 30, I have built a successful career as an event planner, orchestrating perfect gatherings for others while always ensuring my family's Christmas celebrations are flawless. This year, I was particularly excited until I accidentally overheard my mother and siblings plotting to make me the designated babysitter for 5 children without even asking me. The betrayal cut deep, but instead of confrontation, I decided on something better. Where are you watching from today? If family has ever taken you for granted, hit subscribe because my story might just inspire your own boundaries. Family is complicated. Mine certainly is. On the surface, we appear close-knit, the kind that gathers for Sunday dinners and never misses a birthday. But beneath that picture-perfect facade lies a dynamic that took me years to recognize. I am the middle child in our family of 3 siblings. My older sister Charlotte is the perfectionist with twin boys, 6-year-old terrors named Jackson and James, who she somehow believes are angels incarnate. My younger brother David has 3 kids with his wife Sarah, 8-year-old Sophie, and the younger ones, 4-year-old Emma, and 2-year-old Lucas. Then there is me, perpetually single Rebecca, the reliable daughter who always steps up for family events. My mother, Patricia, widowed 5 years ago when Dad passed from a sudden heart attack, has come to rely on me more than I sometimes think is fair. Dad was always my advocate, the one who would notice when others volunteered my time without asking. Without him, the balance shifted. My role as family coordinator wasn't something I chose, but evolved naturally from my organizational skills. I started small, helping with Thanksgiving dinner timing when Mom seemed overwhelmed after Dad died. Then it was Easter, then Christmas, until somehow every family gathering became my responsibility to plan, execute, and often finance. Meanwhile, I built my event planning business from the ground up, starting with small birthday parties and working my way to corporate events and weddings that now command premium prices. My calendar stays booked months in advance, something my family conveniently forgets when they call with last-minute requests. Last summer, Charlotte called the day before her anniversary, frantic that her dinner reservation had fallen through. Could I possibly find them something? Oh, and could I watch the twins while they went out? I canceled my own plans and made calls to 3 restaurant owners who owed me favors. By 9 o'clock that evening, Charlotte and her husband were enjoying a private rooftop dinner I had arranged while I supervised the twins who refused to sleep until their parents returned at midnight. 2 months ago, David needed emergency help with a school project for Sophie. His text read, "Need dinosaur diorama by tomorrow morning. Any chance you could help? We all know your crafting skills are way better than mine." I stayed up until 2 o'clock in the morning, creating a prehistoric landscape that earned Sophie an A. My mother relies on me most of all. When the pipe burst under her kitchen sink, I was her first call. When she needed to figure out her new smartphone, I spent 4 hours walking her through basic functions. When the neighbor's tree fell in her garage, I handled the insurance claim because the paperwork overwhelmed her. For years, I accepted this role without complaint. After all, family helps family. But something changed last spring when I met Marcus at a charity gala I was coordinating. He was the photographer hired to capture the event, and between his camera clicks and my clipboard checks, we discovered a connection that felt effortless. For the first time in years, I found myself excited about dating someone. Marcus understood my hectic schedule because his work involved similar demands. He appreciated my organizational skills rather than exploiting them. When I talked about family obligations, he listened without judgment, but asked gentle questions that made me consider whether the balance was fair. As Christmas approached this year, I felt a new excitement. Marcus and I had been dating for 8 months, and I wanted him to join our family celebration. I dropped hints during our Thanksgiving dinner, mentioning that I might bring someone special this year. My announcement received distracted nods as everyone focused on the meal I had prepared. I began planning Christmas in early November, ordering specialty ingredients and handcrafting personalized ornaments for each family member. I reserved the premium ham from the butcher, who only offers 20 each season, paid for entirely from my own pocket as my gift to everyone. I researched activities the children might enjoy, creating custom coloring books with illustrations of our family traditions. My dining room became Christmas headquarters with lists, schedules, and shopping bags organized by recipient. I spent weekends decorating my mother's house with fresh garlands and arrangements, climbing the tall ladder to place every light just so, while she supervised from below, with a cup of hot chocolate in hand. This year would be different because I planned to introduce Marcus to our traditions. I envisioned us serving dinner side by side, his presence a quiet statement about my life moving forward. I wanted my family to see me as more than just their reliable helper. I wanted them to see the woman who had built a business, found love, and still showed up for family. I believed they would welcome him with the same warmth I had always shown their partners. I had no idea how wrong I was until that fateful day 1 week before Christmas. The morning started like any other December day with frost coating my car windows and holiday music playing on the radio. During my drive to my mother's house, I arrived early for our pre-Christmas planning session, carrying bags of new decorations and my trusty planning binder. The house looked peaceful from outside, the lights I had strung along the eaves twinkling merrily against the gray winter sky. I let myself in with my key, calling out a hello that went unanswered. Assuming they were in the back of the house, I set down my bags in the entryway and headed toward the kitchen where voices drifted down the hallway. As I approached, I recognized my mother's laugh, followed by Charlotte's distinctive tone and David's deeper voice. Just as I was about to turn the corner into the kitchen, my name caught my attention and I paused. My sister was speaking. "So, we're agreed then. Rebecca will watch all the kids during the adult dinner. 5 kids is a lot, but she handles the twins all the time, so adding 3 more should be fine." My hand froze on the wall. What was she talking about? This was the first I had heard about a separate adult dinner. In our family, Christmas had always been everyone together around the large table. My mother responded, "Well, I think it makes sense. The kids' table will be chaotic, and Rebecca is so good with them. Plus, she already has all those activities planned." Those activities were meant for after dinner when we would all participate. I had created Christmas scavenger hunts and craft projects the adults would help with, not babysitting entertainment. David chimed in. "She can eat early with the kids and then we can have our dinner in peace for once. Last year, Lucas had that meltdown and I barely got to taste the food Rebecca had spent all day cooking." I felt a tightness in my chest as I continued to listen, unable to make my presence known. "And she handled the cleanup too, right?" "She always does," Charlotte added. "I was thinking we could open a nice bottle of wine this year without worrying about driving. Maybe even play some adult games after dinner." My mother laughed. "Well, it's not like Rebecca has other plans. No offense to her, but being single at the holidays means she has the time to help. We all have partners and children to consider." The words stung like a physical slap. I had explicitly mentioned bringing Marcus to Christmas this year. Had they simply not listened? Or worse, had they heard but dismissed it entirely? "Has she mentioned that photographer guy lately?" David asked. "I thought that fizzled out months ago." "Oh, that was never serious," my mother dismissed. "Rebecca focuses too much on work for relationships to last. Remember that accountant a few years back? Same thing." My relationship history was now being dissected in my absence with completely inaccurate information. The accountant had moved across the country for a job opportunity. We had parted on good terms, and Marcus was very much still in my life, something they would know if they ever asked about my personal life. "Well, it works out perfectly for us," Charlotte continued. "She can entertain the kids from 4 o'clock onward. I'll tell the twins to save their new toy demonstrations for Aunt Rebecca. And she handled the Santa duties, too, right?" David asked, wrapping the final gifts and arranging them under the tree after the kids go to sleep. "Of course," my mother confirmed. "Rebecca always does that. And the Christmas breakfast the next morning. Remember how she made those snowman pancakes last year? The kids adored those." I stood frozen in the hallway, my mind racing to catalog all the assumptions being made about my time. Not once had anyone asked if I was willing to take on these roles. Not once had they considered I might have my own plans or desires for the holiday. "It's really convenient having an event planner in the family," Charlotte laughed. "Free childcare and catering all in one." Their laughter echoed in my ears as I silently backed away from the kitchen doorway. With careful, quiet movements, I collected my bags from the entryway and slipped out the front door without making a sound. They never even knew I had been there. The drive home passed in a blur, windshield wipers keeping time with my racing thoughts. Tears threatened, but didn't fall as anger began to replace the initial shock. I had spent years bending over backwards to create perfect family moments. And this was how they saw me, as the convenient single woman with nothing better to do than serve their needs. As I pulled into my driveway, the first option that occurred to me was simply canceling Christmas entirely. I could claim a work emergency, or even just tell them the truth about what I had overheard. But the thought of the confrontation, the defensive responses, the inevitability of being labeled oversensitive made me hesitate. Inside my house, I stared at the Christmas command center I had created in my dining room. Personalized gifts wrapped with handmade bows, recipe cards organized by preparation time, handcrafted decorations for each family member, hours and hours of work, not to mention the thousands of dollars already invested in making their holiday special, all while they planned to relegate me to the kids' table without even asking. I sank onto my couch, the weight of years of similar treatment suddenly crystallizing in my mind. The birthdays where my gift was offering to babysit. The family vacations where I somehow always ended up watching the children at the hotel pool while everyone else enjoyed excursions. The countless times I rearranged my schedule because Rebecca is so flexible with her time. The pattern was painfully clear now. I wasn't seen as having a life of equal value to theirs. My time was considered communal property available for their convenience. As this realization washed over me, I knew something had to change. That evening, I sat in my darkened living room, surrounded by the gentle glow of Christmas lights, nursing a glass of wine, and cycling through emotions. Anger gave way to hurt, then to resignation, then back to anger in an exhausting loop. My phone buzzed periodically with texts from my mother asking where I had disappeared to. But I couldn't bring myself to respond yet. I considered my options. Direct confrontation seemed the most straightforward approach. I could call a family meeting, explain what I had overheard, and express my feelings about being taken for granted. But experience told me how that would go. Charlotte would become defensive, claiming I was overreacting. David would look uncomfortable and say little. My mother would tear up and remind me how difficult the holidays had been since Dad died, effectively shifting the conversation to her grief rather than my concerns. Another option was simply accepting the role they had assigned me. I had done it countless times before. I could swallow my disappointment, cancel my plans with Marcus, and fulfill their expectations. The path of least resistance was well worn in our family dynamics. The third option was withdrawing completely. I could cancel Christmas, claim illness or a work emergency, and avoid the whole situation, but that felt like running away, and it would only postpone the inevitable confrontation about family expectations. At 9:30, my phone rang with my best friend Emma's familiar tone. I had texted her earlier with a vague message about family drama, and she was calling to check in. Emma had known me since college and understood my family dynamic better than anyone. "They did what?" she exclaimed after I recounted what I had overheard. "Without even asking you. That's beyond inconsiderate, Rebecca. It's downright disrespectful." Her validation loosened something in my chest. "I know, but this is how it always goes. They assume I'll handle everything because I always have." "Because you're capable and generous," Emma corrected, "not because you're their personal assistant." "What does Marcus say about all this?" "I haven't told him yet," I admitted. "We had plans to spend Christmas Eve together before joining my family on Christmas Day. Now I don't know what to do." "What do you want to do?" Emma asked, cutting through my confusion with her characteristic directness. The question hung in the air as I considered what I truly wanted, not what would cause the least conflict or what would fulfill my family's expectations, but what would honor my own needs and boundaries. "I want to be valued," I said finally. "I want them to recognize that my time and effort matter. I want to spend Christmas with people who see me as a whole person, not just a convenient resource." Even as I spoke, a plan began forming in my mind. It started as a small spark of possibility that grew with each passing second. I was, after all, a professional event planner. I specialized in creating experiences and solving logistical challenges. "Emma," I said slowly, "what if I just wasn't there?" "You mean cancel altogether?" "No, I mean, what if I created a different Christmas for myself this year? What if instead of showing up to be their babysitter, I went somewhere else? Somewhere wonderful." I could almost hear Emma's smile through the phone. "Now that sounds more like the Rebecca I know. What are you thinking?" As we talked, the plan took shape. I remembered a client mentioning a last-minute cancellation at a luxury resort in Florida. As an event planner, I had contacts at venues across the country and beyond. With a few calls, I could probably secure a reservation even during the holiday rush. I could be on a beach on Christmas Day, I mused, the image growing more appealing by the second. No cooking, no cleaning, no wrapping presents at midnight. "Do it," Emma encouraged. "Book it tomorrow. You deserve a break." After ending the call with Emma, I opened my laptop and began researching options. The resort my client had mentioned was indeed available, having had a cancellation for their premium oceanfront suite. The price was steep, but I had been saving for a kitchen renovation that could wait. This was an investment in something more important myself. With growing excitement, I reserved the suite for 5 nights starting on Christmas Eve. As I entered my credit card information, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For once, I was prioritizing my own happiness. But what about Marcus? Would he think I was running away from family conflict? Would he be disappointed to miss meeting my family? There was only one way to find out. Despite the late hour, I called him. When he answered, the background noise suggested he was still at a photo shoot. Rebecca, perfect timing. I just finished up here. Everything okay? You never call this late. I took a deep breath and explained what had happened. From the overheard conversation to my impulsive resort booking. I know it's last minute, I finished. But would you want to come with me? Spend Christmas on the beach instead of with my family drama. His response was immediate and enthusiastic. Are you kidding? That sounds amazing. And for what it's worth, what they planned to do was not okay. You deserve better treatment than that. His support solidified my resolve. There's one more thing I want to do, I told him. I still want to handle the catering arrangements for my family. That's very generous of you. Considering everything, he said, sounding slightly confused. Well, I replied, a smile spreading across my face. I have something very specific in mind. The next morning, I called the upscale catering company I frequently collaborated with for corporate events. The owner, Vincent, was surprised to hear from me so close to Christmas. Rebecca, what can I do for you? Emergency client situation. Actually, Vincent, this is a personal request. I need a special Christmas dinner delivered to my mother's house. But with some very specific parameters. We discussed my requirements. An elegant adult dinner with wine pairings for 5 adults and a separate kid-friendly meal, clearly labeled for children under 10. I specified that all dishes should be completely prepared, requiring only minimal heating with detailed instructions even a cooking novice could follow. No problem at all, Vincent assured me. We can deliver everything at 4 o'clock on Christmas Day. Will you be there to receive it? No, I replied, feeling a thrill of satisfaction. I'll be out of town. They'll need to handle it themselves for once. With the catering arranged and the vacation booked, my plan was taking shape. I would give my family exactly what they wanted at Christmas without my interference, but on terms they never expected. Sometimes the best gift is the opportunity to appreciate what you have taken for granted. For the next few days, I maintained the illusion that everything was proceeding according to plan. When my mother called to ask why I had missed our planning session, I fabricated a story about an emergency with a client's holiday party. She accepted this without question. Another reminder of how my work was simultaneously exploited and dismissed by my family. Well, you're still handling the Christmas dinner shopping, right? She asked. I gave Charlotte your number to call about the twins' food allergies. They suddenly won't eat anything with red food coloring. Actually, I replied, injecting enthusiasm into my voice. I've arranged something special this year. Professional catering from Romano's. Everything will be delivered ready to serve. My mother's surprise was evident. Catering, but you always cook Christmas dinner. It's tradition. I thought this would be easier for everyone, I explained. More time to enjoy the holiday instead of being stuck in the kitchen. After a pause, she accepted the change with surprising ease. Well, if you think that's best, you always know how to make things special, Rebecca. With that hurdle cleared, I moved on to the next phase of my plan. I needed to retrieve the personal decorations and heirlooms I had left at my mother's house over the years. Items that held sentimental value to me, but had somehow become communal property in the family collection. The following afternoon, I visited under the pretense of checking the catering menu. While my mother was on the phone with a neighbor, I quietly collected my grandmother's hand-painted ornaments, the stockings I had embroidered with each family member's name, and the antique serving dishes I had inherited from my father's mother. These treasures had gradually migrated to my mother's house because that was where we always celebrated holidays. But this year, they would either travel with me or remain safely in my home. It was a small act of reclamation, but it felt significant. Throughout the week, family members contacted me with their usual requests and assumptions. David called to ask if I could pick up last-minute gifts for his children since I was so good at that sort of thing. Charlotte texted to inform me that the twins now wanted to perform a Christmas pageant and would need costumes. My mother left a voicemail wondering if I could come early on Christmas Eve to help her rearrange the furniture for optimal flow. To each request, I gave non-committal responses. I'll see what I can do. My schedule is pretty packed this year. Small seeds of doubt that would bloom into realization when they discovered my absence. Meanwhile, I prepared for my getaway. I purchased a new swimsuit and resort were items that had no place in my usual December wardrobe. I wrapped the gifts I had already bought for my family and arranged for them to be delivered by courier on Christmas morning. Despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to leave them without presents. Each package included a card with a personal message that hinted at my desire for a more balanced relationship moving forward. Marcus and I finalized our travel plans, booking an early morning flight on Christmas Eve. He seemed increasingly excited about our spontaneous holiday, suggesting activities and researching restaurants at our destination. His enthusiasm reinforced my decision to prioritize this new relationship over family obligations that were neither appreciated nor reciprocated. On Thursday, 3 days before Christmas, I met with Vincent from Romano's to finalize the catering arrangements. We sat in his office reviewing the menu while his staff prepared holiday orders in the bustling kitchen beyond the glass partition. So to confirm, Vincent said, checking his notes, we have the adult dinner with beef Wellington, roasted winter vegetables, truffle mashed potatoes, and the chocolate hazelnut torte for dessert. Wine pairings included. Then the kids' meal with chicken tenders, mac and cheese, steamed broccoli, and Christmas cookies, all labeled and with heating instructions. Perfect, I nodded. And you have the delivery address and time. 4 o'clock on Christmas Day. Vincent looked up from his tablet. All set. Though I have to say, it's unusual for you not to be there yourself. You're usually so hands-on with family events. I smiled. This year, I'm trying something different, letting go of control a little bit. What I didn't say was that I was paying a premium for the Christmas Day delivery, nearly double the normal rate. But it would be worth every penny to picture their faces when the catering arrived with me nowhere in sight. There's one more thing, I added, reaching into my bag. Can you make sure this note is included with the delivery? It's important it arrives with the food. Vincent accepted the sealed envelope with my mother's name written in my neat handwriting. No problem at all. Anything else I should know? Just that payment has been handled in full, including gratuity for the delivery staff. They won't need to provide anything except their signature. That evening, I attended what would be my last family dinner before Christmas. My mother had invited everyone for a casual meal of takeout pizza, a stark contrast to the elaborate holiday feast that was typically expected of me. As we gathered around the table, I noticed the subtle ways my family continued to take my presence for granted. David handed his youngest to me without asking when the child became fussy. Charlotte discussed Christmas Eve plans that apparently included me supervising a gingerbread house competition for the children. My mother mentioned that she had told the neighbors I would be happy to walk their dog while they visited family on the other side of town. Not once did anyone ask about my plans or preferences. Not once did they notice my unusual quietness or the way I deflected questions about Christmas Day logistics. They were so accustomed to my accommodation that they could not see the changes already in motion. As I drove home that night, I felt a mixture of sadness and resolve. I loved my family deeply, but patterns established over years would not change without a significant disruption. Sometimes love meant creating uncomfortable situations that ultimately led to growth. And sometimes self-respect required stepping back from those who could not see your worth. The next day, I packed my suitcase with sunscreen and sundresses, an act that felt rebellious in the December chill. I confirmed our airport car service and printed our boarding passes. Everything was in place for our Christmas escape. That night, I turned off my phone earlier than usual, unwilling to field any last-minute requests from family members. Tomorrow would bring either understanding or chaos. Either way, I was ready for a new kind of Christmas. The morning of December 24th dawned clear and cold, winter sunlight glinting off frost-covered lawns as our car service navigated the quiet streets toward the airport. Marcus sat beside me, thumbing through the resort information on his phone, while I gazed out the window at holiday decorations adorning the houses we passed. Second thoughts? He asked, noticing my pensive expression. I considered the question carefully before answering. Not about going. Just wondering how they'll react when they realize I'm really not coming. My phone had remained off since the previous evening, and I planned to keep it that way until we reached the airport. The temporary disconnection felt both liberating and like removing a splinter that had been embedded for so long it had become part of me. The airport bustled with holiday travelers, harried parents corralling excited children, while couples and solo travelers moved with purpose toward their gates. We checked our bags and navigated security with surprising ease, finding ourselves with time to spare before boarding. In an airport cafe decorated with tinsel and miniature trees, I finally powered on my phone. As expected, the notifications began flooding in immediately. 6 missed calls from my mother, 4 from Charlotte, 3 text messages from David asking if I could pick up batteries on my way over, voicemails accumulating in rapid succession. I scrolled through the messages with a strange detachment, as though reading about someone else's family drama. The most recent text from my mother sent a chill through me despite the airport's overactive heating system. Rebecca, where are you? We're waiting to start the Christmas Eve breakfast. The children are asking for your cinnamon rolls. The cinnamon rolls I had never agreed to make. The breakfast I had never agreed to attend. The expectations piled upon assumptions piled upon years of compliance. They still have no idea, I murmured, showing Marcus the messages. His eyebrows rose as he scanned the increasingly frantic texts. When are you going to tell them? Now, I decided, my finger hovering over my mother's contact information, but just enough to let them know not to expect me for babysitting duties. I composed a brief message. Will not be available for childcare during Christmas dinner tomorrow. Enjoy your adults-only meal. Love, Rebecca. Deliberately vague. Nothing about where I was or the fact that I would not be present for any of the festivities. Just enough to disrupt the plan I had overheard. Within seconds of sending the text, my phone began ringing with my mother's call. I let it go to voicemail twice before finally answering on the third attempt. Rebecca Elizabeth, where are you? My mother's voice carried the sharp edge of someone unused to having her expectations thwarted. Good morning, Mom, I replied calmly, signaling to Marcus that this was the call. He gave me an encouraging thumbs up. Don't good morning me, young lady. The children are waiting for breakfast and we need to finalize the schedule for tonight's activities. Why aren't you here? I took a deep breath, centering myself in the bustling airport terminal. I'm not coming, Mom. Not today and not tomorrow. The silence that followed stretched for several seconds before she responded, her voice suddenly uncertain. What do you mean not coming? Of course, you're coming. It's Christmas. I overheard your conversation last week. I explained, keeping my voice level despite the adrenaline coursing through my system. The one where you and Charlotte and David decided I would be the babysitter for all 5 kids during your adults-only dinner. The one where you all laughed about me being single and having nothing better to do. Another weighted silence. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted from indignation to placation. Oh, Rebecca, you misunderstood. We were just trying to figure out the logistics. Of course, we want you at the adult dinner. You're being oversensitive. Am I? Because it sounded pretty clear to me? And it fits a pattern. Mom, you all make plans for my time without asking. As if it belongs to you by default. As if my life and my choices matter less than everyone else's. That's ridiculous, she protested, but with less conviction. Where are you now? Just come over and we can discuss this in person. I'm at the airport, I replied, watching as our flight began the boarding process. My flight leaves in 30 minutes. Airport, her voice rose in pitch. What flight? Where are you going? On vacation with Marcus, the photographer you all assumed I was no longer seeing. On Christmas Eve. Rebecca, you cannot be serious. What about dinner tomorrow? What about the children's presents? What about all the traditions you always handle? The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, calling our group to the gate. That's the thing, Mom. They became my responsibility without anyone asking if I wanted that role. This year, I'm choosing something different. Her tone shifted again, this time to barely contained panic. But what about dinner? I haven't prepared anything. I thought you were handling everything, like always. The catering will be delivered at 4 o'clock tomorrow, I explained. Everything is paid for with detailed instructions. Adult dinner for 5, kids meals clearly labeled. All you have to do is heat and serve according to the directions. Catering, she repeated, as though the word was foreign. But that's not the same as a home-cooked meal. The children will be so disappointed. The children will be fine with chicken tenders and Christmas cookies, I assured her. And you adults will enjoy your beef Wellington and wine pairings without having to worry about childcare. After all, that was the plan, wasn't it? Just without me in the picture. Our row was called for boarding, and Marcus gestured toward the gate. I nodded, gathering my carry-on bag. I have to go now. Mom, our flight is boarding. Rebecca, wait. The desperation in her voice was unmistakable now. You can't just leave. What are we supposed to do without you? The question hung between us, heavy with unintended revelation. What were they supposed to do without me? Figure it out themselves. Perhaps appreciate the work I had always done. Maybe recognize my absence as the consequence of their actions. Hopefully, you'll manage, I said gently. The food will be delivered. The presents for the children are wrapped and labeled in the guest room closet. Detailed instructions for everything are in the binder on the kitchen counter, the one none of you ever bothered to look at, even though I referenced it constantly. But it won't be the same, she insisted. No, I agreed. It won't. As we reached the gate attendant, I delivered my final message. Merry Christmas, Mom. Enjoy the adult dinner you all planned. I'll turn my phone off during the flight, but I'll check messages when we land. When will you be back? She asked, a tremor in her voice suggesting tears were imminent. After New Year's, I replied. We can talk then. Before she could respond, I ended the call and switched my phone to airplane mode. As Marcus and I found our seats on the plane, I felt a complex mixture of emotions: guilt at disrupting the family holiday, anxiety about the confrontation to come, but underlying it all, a profound sense of liberation. The plane taxied down the runway as the flight attendant delivered the safety briefing. As we took off, ascending through clouds into clear blue skies, I mentally shed the weight of expectations I had carried for far too long. Whatever awaited me upon return, I had finally advocated for my own worth in the family equation. Marcus squeezed my hand as the seatbelt sign dinged off. You okay? I turned to him with a smile that felt more genuine than any I had managed in weeks. I am now. Merry Christmas to us. As our plane soared south toward sunshine and new traditions, I left behind the snow, the family drama, and years of unreciprocated accommodation. For once, Christmas would be about joy rather than obligation. And perhaps when the dust settled, my family would understand why this stand had been necessary all along. Christmas morning broke with golden sunshine, streaming through the curtains of our oceanfront suite, a stark contrast to the snow-covered landscape I had left behind. I padded onto the balcony, coffee in hand, watching early morning swimmers brave the gentle waves while palm trees swayed in the breeze. The peaceful scene bore no resemblance to what would normally be happening at my mother's house. Children racing downstairs at dawn, adults struggling to function without caffeine, and me orchestrating the carefully timed chaos of present opening and breakfast preparation. Marcus joined me on the balcony, wrapping his arms around my waist. Merry Christmas. Any regrets about being here instead of there? I considered the question seriously. Surprisingly, no. I missed the good parts. Of course, the children's excitement, the moment when everyone opens the perfect gift I found for them, but the relief of not being responsible for everyone's happiness today outweighs all of that. We spent the morning exchanging the small gifts we had brought along, enjoying a luxurious breakfast delivered by room service, and walking along the shore collecting shells. The resort had decorated palm trees with twinkling lights and red boughs, a whimsical tropical take on Christmas that charmed me. At precisely noon, as we lounged by the pool, sipping fruity drinks garnished with tiny umbrellas, I checked my phone for the first time since our flight had landed the previous evening. The onslaught of notifications made my stomach tighten with anxiety, but I forced myself to methodically work through them. 20-7 missed calls, 42 text messages, 13 voicemails. My family had not taken my absence lightly. I started with the earliest messages, tracking the progression of reactions as Christmas Eve had unfolded without me. The initial texts from my mother oscillated between guilt trips, "The children are so disappointed," and angry accusations, "I cannot believe you would abandon us like this." Charlotte's messages were predictably "How am I supposed to manage the twins' behavior during dinner without your help?" While David's showed surprising insight, "We really messed up, didn't we?" The voicemails told a similar story, with my mother's voice growing increasingly frantic as she realized I truly wasn't going to appear and save the day. The last message from Christmas Eve, timestamped 11:43 p.m., captured her vulnerable admission. "I don't know how to do this without you, Rebecca. I've always relied on you to make Christmas happen." That was the crux of it. I had become so essential to their holiday experience that my absence created a vacuum no one was prepared to fill. But that dependence had come at the cost of my own holiday joy, a price I was no longer willing to pay. The Christmas Day messages began early, with Charlotte's 7:12 a.m. text capturing the family chaos in real time. "The twins are fighting over who gets to open the first present and Mom is crying in the bathroom. This is a disaster and it's your fault." By mid-morning, the tone had shifted. David sent a surprisingly reflective message. "I get it now. We've been taking you for granted for years. I'm sorry for my part in that. The kids miss you, but I told them Aunt Rebecca needed a vacation, too. Merry Christmas wherever you are." My mother's Christmas morning voicemail was tearful, but less accusatory. "The caterers are coming at 4 o'clock. I found your binder with all the instructions. I never realized how much work you put into planning everything. Please call when you can." The most surprising message came from Charlotte around 11 a.m. "So, I had to handle the twins' meltdown by myself this morning when they couldn't find the special chocolate. Santa stockings, you always make, and you know what? I realized I've never had to deal with their Christmas morning behavior because you've always stepped in. That's not fair to you. It's taken your dramatic exit for me to see that. Still mad you didn't tell us directly? But starting to understand why. As I scrolled through the messages, a weight lifted from my shoulders. They were beginning to understand. The disruption I had caused was uncomfortable but necessary, forcing them to recognize patterns that had been invisible when I was complying with them. Marcus noticed my small smile as I set down the phone. Good news. Progress, I replied. They're upset, but they're also starting to get it. David actually apologized. Are you going to call them? I shook my head. Not yet. I think they need a little more time with the discomfort. And honestly, so do I. This is the first Christmas in years where I'm not constantly checking if everyone else is happy. We spent the afternoon on a snorkeling excursion, the colorful fish and coral formations providing a welcome distraction from family dynamics. Returning to our room to prepare for the special Christmas dinner at the resort's oceanfront restaurant, I checked my phone again. New messages had arrived, most notably from my mother. At 4:37 p.m., the catering just arrived. Everything is beautifully packaged with instructions even I can follow. The note you left made me cry. You're right that we've taken advantage of your generosity. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. Please call when you're ready. I hadn't expected such a quick acknowledgement of the problem. Typically, my family required multiple conversations and considerable time to accept responsibility for hurtful behavior. Perhaps my absence had created space for reflection that my presence never allowed. At 5:45 p.m., Charlotte sent a photo of the elegantly plated adult dinner with the caption, "This is delicious, but doesn't taste as good without you here. The kids are actually behaving with their special meal. You thought of everything, even in your absence." The messages continued through the evening. David sent a video of all 5 children singing a Christmas carol they had apparently practiced as a surprise for me. My mother texted a picture of the family gathered around the tree with a visible empty space where I would normally sit. By the time Marcus and I returned from our candlelit Christmas dinner, I felt emotionally ready to respond. Not with a call, which might devolve into tearful demands for my return, but with a group message that clearly articulated my feelings. I composed the message carefully. Merry Christmas, everyone. I'm safe and doing well. I needed this time away to process how I've been feeling for years. When I overheard you planning to use me as the default babysitter without even asking, it crystallized a pattern that's been happening for too long. My time, my efforts, and my presence have been taken for granted. I've been treated as a resource rather than a person with my own needs and desires. I love you all, but I needed you to experience a Christmas without my constant accommodation to understand its true cost. I'm glad the catering worked out and that you're making the best of things. We'll talk when I return. But moving forward, things need to change. I deserve the same consideration and respect that each of you expects. Enjoy the rest of the holiday. See you in the new year. I hesitated before adding a final line. P.S. Marcus says hello. He would have loved to meet you all under different circumstances. After sending the message, I turned off notifications and placed my phone on the nightstand. Whatever responses came through could wait until morning. Tonight was for watching the moonlight on the ocean and appreciating the gift I had given myself, the freedom to prioritize my own happiness. As we fell asleep to the sound of waves outside our window, I felt a sense of peace that had been missing from Christmas for years. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and others is to step away and create space for change. My family's initial reactions suggested they were capable of the growth I hoped for. But only time would tell if this disruption would lead to lasting transformation in our dynamics. Either way, I had taken the first crucial step toward a more balanced relationship with the people I loved. And that was a Christmas gift worth celebrating. 3 weeks after Christmas, I unlocked the door to my condo, wheeling my suitcase across the threshold into the familiar space that somehow felt different after my time away. The extended vacation with Marcus had transformed into an exploration of local culture beyond the resort boundaries. With impromptu day trips to coastal villages and evenings sampling regional cuisine at restaurants where tourists rarely ventured, the experience had been restorative in ways I hadn't anticipated, providing not just an escape from family obligations, but a rediscovery of my own curiosity and spontaneity. The first family gathering after my return was scheduled for the following Sunday, a birthday celebration for my nephew Lucas. I approached the event with a mixture of determination and apprehension, unsure whether the insights from my Christmas absence would translate into meaningful changes or revert to established patterns under the pressure of face-to-face interaction. When I arrived at David and Sarah's house carrying a modestly wrapped gift, rather than the elaborate party supplies I would normally have brought. The initial greetings were awkward. My mother hugged me too tightly, whispering, "We need to talk," in my ear. Charlotte offered a stiff hello, her expression guarded. Only David seemed genuinely relaxed, greeting me with a warm smile and sincere, "Good to have you back." The children provided welcome distraction, swarming me with excited updates about Christmas presents and school adventures. I noticed with interest that they were being supervised by their respective parents, rather than automatically funneled in my direction. During a lull in the celebration, my mother cornered me in the kitchen as I was refilling my water glass. "What you did at Christmas was very hurtful, Rebecca," she began, her voice low to avoid being overheard. "We were all counting on you." I met her gaze steadily. "That's exactly the problem, Mom. You were all counting on me without asking if I was available. You made plans for my time as if it belonged to you." "We're family," she countered. "Family helps each other." "Yes, but it should go both ways," I explained. "When was the last time someone in this family asked what they could do to help me? When was the last time anyone considered that I might have my own plans or preferences for the holidays?" Her brow furrowed as she considered my questions. After a moment, her shoulders sagged slightly. "I can't remember," she admitted. "I guess we've gotten used to you always being the one who handles everything." "That's not fair to any of us," I said gently. "It's not fair to me to always be the giver, and it's not fair to you to always be the takers. I want a more balanced relationship." Tears welled in her eyes. "I've been thinking about it since Christmas. After your father died, I leaned on you so heavily. It was easier to keep doing that than to figure out how to stand on my own. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I didn't see how much I was asking of you." Her acknowledgement, so different from the defensive response I had expected, caught me off guard. "Thank you for saying that, Mom. I want to do better," she continued, wiping away a tear. "I don't want to lose you because I've been selfish." We spoke for nearly 30 minutes, delving into years of accumulated expectations and unexamined patterns. For the first time, I felt truly heard as I expressed how isolating it had been to always prioritize everyone else's needs above my own. And for the first time, I saw my mother as someone working through her own struggles, rather than simply imposing demands on my time. Later in the afternoon, Charlotte approached me on the back porch where I had stepped out for a moment of quiet. "That was quite a stunt you pulled at Christmas," she said, her tone deliberately light, though her eyes remained serious. "It wasn't a stunt," I corrected. "It was a boundary." She sipped her drink, considering my words. "The twins asked about you every day. Where's Aunt Rebecca? Why isn't she here?" She paused. I didn't have a good answer, because saying we took advantage of her until she'd had enough didn't seem appropriate for a 6-year-old. Despite myself, I laughed. "What did you tell them?" "That sometimes adults need vacations, too, and that we should have been more thoughtful about your time." She met my gaze directly. "I was angry at first. It felt like you'd abandoned us when we needed you. But then I had to deal with the Christmas morning meltdowns myself, and the bedtime tantrums and all the little crises you usually smooth over without anyone noticing. And I prompted when she fell silent, and I realized we've been using you as a convenient safety valve. Whenever parenting gets hard, we hand the problem to Aunt Rebecca." She shook her head. "That's not fair. And it's not good for the kids either. They need to see their parents handling challenges, not outsourcing the hard parts." Her insight surprised me. Of all my family members, I had expected Charlotte to be the most resistant to change. "Thank you for saying that," I said sincerely. "I love the twins and want to be part of their lives. I just don't want to be the default solution to every problem." "Understood," she nodded. "So tell me about this Marcus. Is it serious?" The shift to personal interest in my life rather than what I could do for her marked another small step forward. We talked about my relationship and her career challenges, engaging as sisters rather than as service provider and client. David proved to be my strongest ally in the family's adjustment process. During dinner, he deliberately redirected conversations when they veered toward assumptions about my availability. When our mother mentioned that she needed help reorganizing her garage in the spring, David interjected, "Maybe we could all set aside a Saturday to tackle that together, if Rebecca is available." The emphasis on my choice and the suggestion of shared responsibility felt revolutionary in our family context. As weeks turned into months, the changes solidified into new patterns. Family gatherings became collaborative efforts rather than my sole responsibility. Text messages began with, "Are you available to help with?" rather than, "I need you to handle." My mother started taking community classes to build her own social network rather than relying exclusively on her children for companionship. My relationship with Marcus flourished in the healthier environment I had created by establishing boundaries. He joined several family gatherings where he was welcomed with genuine interest rather than the perfunctory acknowledgement I had feared. His outside perspective helped me recognize when old patterns threatened to resurface, and his support reinforced my commitment to maintaining a balanced relationship with my family. By the following Christmas, the transformation was remarkable. Planning began with a family meeting in November where responsibilities were divided equally among all adult members. My mother hosted, David handled the children's activities, Charlotte managed the gift exchange, and I coordinated the meal, but with significant contributions from everyone. On Christmas Eve, as we all gathered in my mother's living room with carols playing softly and children excitedly arranging cookies for Santa, I found myself experiencing the holiday joy that had been missing for years. Without the burden of sole responsibility, I could be present in the moment, appreciating the connections that had always been the true purpose of our gatherings. Best Christmas ever, Marcus whispered as we watched the family scene unfold. Because I'm not exhausted from making it perfect for everyone else, I agreed. Later that evening, as the children finally settled into sleep and the adults enjoyed a quiet moment around the tree, my mother raised her glass in a toast. To Rebecca, she said, her eyes meeting mine with understanding, who taught us that loving someone means respecting their boundaries, not just accepting their sacrifices. Thank you for having the courage to show us a better way to be family. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been moments of regression, uncomfortable conversations, and the challenging work of establishing new expectations, but the result was worth every difficult moment. A family that functioned through mutual respect rather than convenient exploitation, and relationships that nourished rather than depleted. As I looked around at the faces of those I loved, I understood that sometimes the greatest act of love is standing up for your own worth. In doing so, you create the possibility for relationships built on mutual care rather than imbalanced obligation. The empty chair I had left the previous Christmas had made space for growth that benefited everyone. So, if you've ever found yourself giving and giving while receiving little in return, remember that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary. Your time, your effort, and your presence are valuable gifts that deserve to be recognized and appreciated. And those who truly love you will rise to meet the standard you set. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with loved ones who were taking you for granted? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe for more stories about navigating complicated relationships with courage and self-respect. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the courage to say enough.